we've muted all the microphones, and we're recording also.
Lovely. Hare Krishna, everybody. This is a conference for those who are, according to the list we have here, are aspiring disciples and those who are requesting to be accepted, and introductions. I'm just looking at those, so I'm not seeing any of you. And up until now, we've sort of had devotees introducing themselves, and that really went on for a long, long time. Now we're going to try and do it a little different way. And that will be that let me, at least those of you who are on the list, I think there's a lot more devotees here, Chaitanya Chandra, than on the list, right?
Yes, these are some devotees already accepted, so they're aspiring, they're non-initiated aspiring disciples.
Okay. And well, I guess we start off with the fact that here we are on virtual. And about the only thing that's not virtual is the connection. In other words, our connection is not a virtual connection. It's a real connection. It's a connection that's not dependent on whether you're in, okay, here's Vladimir in Ukraine, and Joanne Derbyshire. Are you anywhere else other than Derbyshire? Oh, she lives somewhere else. And then we have Nilüfer in Turkey, Barshana. Oh, she's a real new devotee. And she's in London. I hope she's feeling better. And Christina, she's in Kazakhstan. Just shake your head one way or the other. Okay, she is. She's in Kazakhstan. So we've certainly got a virtual connection. And of course, then we have Hungarians. We have Marianne and Zsolt. I don't know how happy Marianne would be if she knew that she was introduced here to me by Chaitanya Chandra as Zsolt's husband. She likes to be sort of identified by herself, for herself. And, well, I can't list everybody's name, but I'm going to go over some. And so is that okay, Chaitanya Chandra?
Yes, Guru Maharaj, thank you.
I'm standing because I can't sit. And just for health reasons. So that's why you see me moving around, and that's why I'm so high up. So I have some, I will start off with the introductions because everything starts with an introduction. And to save time, I'm not going to flip back and forth just to connect with everybody, but I have Bhakta Ben, who's from Wales, and Hare Krishna, Sankirtan devotees, got books in his hand, and Bhakta Erne here in Budapest, who we know well, and he's connected with Gaur Krishna as his counselor, and he's a regular. Bhakta David, and he's been in Budapest temple for quite some time, and he's under Ananda Chaitanya. as Levanta is also Sankirtan devotee. This is be another marathon. And Hare Krishna to all those Sankirtan devotees. Then we have Sabo Jot, who is under Chandrasekhar Prabhu's counselor. This is very nice. For me, this counselor system is very valuable, and it's nice to see that devotees are really sort of connected that way. It's important for regular connection. And then Eva is Bhaktin Eva. She's also with Chandrasekhar as counselor. And then we have Kata, Kolar Kata, who's Gaur Krishna group, counselor group, and in Budapest, Hare Krishna. And so is Tunde, Öszlányi Tunde, Gaur Krishna's counselor group. Okay, Marianne, Hare Krishna, here you are. It's Csabragi Marian, and in brackets it says Dunai Zsolt felesége. Hare Krishna. So she's also part of Gaur Krishna's counselor group. And then we have Shamu, who goes by the name of, he likes to just be called Shamu. And he's one of Mohandas's acquaintances. Also in Budapest, you can see a lot of people in Budapest, Hare Krishna. And again, part of Gaur Krishna's group, and that's Újvárosi Péter. Thank you very much. And then we got Bhakta Sam from Bhaktivedanta Manor. We've been sort of corresponding. I don't know, let me just come over here and see, is Colin Hughes on? I'm just going through quickly. Chaitanya Chandra, is Colin online?
I asked for him earlier.
There are Gurmas there, there's Anahita, they're all there.
Anahita. That's right, the whole family's there. Okay, Colin's an old acquaintance from Romford. If you don't know where Romford is, well, you haven't missed anything. But that's also in UK. And seems like Tarun Krishna is his counselor. That's a good guide. And then here comes the family. Wow. And it's Anahita's birthday today. Wow. Congratulations. Hare Krishna, Anahita. And she happens to be 30 years young. Today is her birthday. This is the family members, all Colin's family. And there's Lalita Hughes, also another daughter. And well, it's not her birthday, and she's a baby. She's much younger. So, and she lives in Hornchurch. Well, that's not far away from Romford. And Hare Krishna, nice. Anyway, we met not that long ago, but seems like nowadays things time goes by. And then I have Jai Palmer for Stevenage, and we know each other from quite some time. And Stuart in London, who's Tarun Krishna's contact. We're back to Budapest, and Ejud Mariana, she's Mohan's friend. And I'm looking at Zunko Maxim Vladimirovich from Novorossiysk, Russia. And I just read that out because, well, you can't see it, but he's in uniform. I don't know what kind of uniform that is, whether it's a soldier uniform or police uniform, some kind of uniform. Hare Krishna. And part of Gaur Krishna's group, again, is Leela, Matashi Leela, who we know well for quite some time. And, then again, Gaur Krishna's connection. Now, this is Marianne's husband. And his name is Zsolt. And he's also acquaintances for a while. Pal Ildiko is a part of Maharani Devi Dasi's group, who was just in hospital 2 days ago for an operation, but she's at home recuperating. And this is a long list. This is why I'm doing the introduction. If you were all doing the introduction, we'd probably be on the first person right now. And then there's Bhakta Károly in Budapest also. You can see a lot of preaching going on in Budapest. There's a lot of devotees coming to Krishna consciousness. And, he's with Ananda Vrindavan, but Ananda Vrindavan's here in New Rajadam. So I don't know how that's going on, but they have a connection. And Bhaktin Monica, she's the last person on my list, who's also Gaur Krishna's part of Gaur Krishna.
çeviri.
Huh?
It's okay, that was an interruption, sorry, Guruji.
And that was, she's also part of Gaur Krishna's group. So these are all the devotees, young, old, in between, who I'm getting to know. Just if you want to know, there are 16 devotees in Budapest, 1 from New Rajadam, 2 from the countryside. That doesn't mean that they're living in tents. It just means that they're in other places other than these places. And then 1 devotee from Russia, 7 from the UK. And then, there was that one girl from Kazakhstan. That is not Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And then that,
Sorry, Guruji. If you refresh the page, there's 2 more there. There's Sechay Tamash and also Gerenche Jozef.
Okay, let me, Sechay Tamash, at the end?
It will probably be 3/4 of the way down is Jozef. And
yeah, Gerenche Jozef.
And then after 2, you see Tamash.
And Sechay Tamash, yes. He's Szolnok. Szolnok is a city, town in Hungary. And it's got Manini's name here. Manini's in London. I'm not clear how they have connection, but...
I think that's Malini.
Malini.
Yes.
Yeah, not Manini. Yes, correct. Malini is there. Wonderful, wonderful devotee, wonderful preacher. And Gerenche Jozef, who is in Pécs, and that's a city in the south, for those of you who aren't Hungarian. And his counselor is Manmohan. And we have a nice picture of him with a tie and a white shirt. It looks like a real gentleman, except that picture is from 2007. Okay, so those were the introductions, which means that these are devotees who usually I would say, okay, come and spend some time, let's get to know each other. And now that's not really happening. We have the occasional devotee who comes down here, but they do it with a test. And of course, obviously, they're just Hungarians, and then they have to stay for an extended period of time. And now accommodation has become difficult. Earlier, we had devotees staying in the tent over here, that's not so advisable anymore to stay in a tent. Our guest house is now being closed, so that's no longer a problem. This is where we're able to connect. Do I need to refresh to be accepted, Chaitanya Chandra, or that's okay?
Yes, best to refresh it, Gurumaharaj.
Okay, let me just refresh that. Yes. Well, let me move on to these devotees who request to be quote unquote accepted, and now I'm just assuming everyone has, and I've received recommendations to be accepted, because acceptance is based on having done the not Bhakti Shastri, the disciple course, and being recommended by a counselor. It's a very good system. And here we have a total of 16 devotees who I'm happy to accept. And we start off with Somyendu Pal, as well as Mandipa Basupal. And they're in Croydon, and their counselor is Varshana Devi Dasi, who's here. And then there was Christina. Oh, yes, sorry, Christina. She's in Kazakhstan. That was my mistake, Chaitanya Chandra. She's not being introduced. She's being here for being accepted. So Hare Krishna. And yeah, far away. I wonder, it's been a long time since I was in Kazakhstan. And then there's Bhaktin Haini here in New Brajadam. Kundalata Devidasi is her counselor, and she comes early in the morning and does work here in the garden. So next time when you come back, Haini, concentrate on the leaves. The leaves are falling from the trees, and they need to be gerabi, or they need to be raked. We need to rake the leaves. And then Istvan Pal, you can see that Bengalis and Hungarians have similar names, last names. And Ananda Vrindavan is also his counselor. He's from Budapest. Bhakta Karoy, Zaban Karoy, also Ananda Vrindavan and Budapest. And then we got Joanne Derbyshire. And okay, it says she lives in the UK, and I'm just thinking she lives in Derbyshire. After that, there's Arun Dokia and Anushuya Dokia, and they live in Luton, and Lalita Saki recommended them. They were aspiring for Bhakti Swami Maharaj. Need I say anymore? Unfortunately, he's not with us. And then Shosheva, who is here in Hungary, in Tapolca, and Kurukshetra Prabhu is her counselor, and Doga, he's in Istanbul, and Krishna is his counselor. Now we have a lot of wonderful devotees there, and they're just going to be going on a virtual retreat, usually this time of year. Well, actually a little earlier. We're over there, and we have great seminars and retreats. Now we can't do that, but there's organizing for this weekend a retreat. And there's Tzitnem, she's also in Istanbul, and Ipek, who's studying math. She's a mathematician and very logical. So bit by bit, she added things up and came to the realization that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we're continuing, all these are devotees from Turkey, Bhaktin Merhem, and then Bhaktin Nilüfer, who's doing our translation and spent quite some time in Sridham Mayapur. And then we're going to Abkhazia, which is in the CIS, and there's Bhaktin Larissa. And Hare Krishna. And the last person is Tibor. Anyway, he's our prasadam distributor. He's always there in Budapest. He's distributing prasadam. Generally, I just refer to him as Mahaprasadam Das, and because he's always distributing prasadam. So, did I cover everybody, Chaitanya Chandra?
I think that was everyone, unless those devotees have been communicating with me can indicate that there was someone else. There was one name that we mentioned wrong on the previous list, Gumaraj, was John Stewart Hubbard. And I think we mentioned his name as Stewart, just so that he... So it's that.
Okay, Hare Krishna, Stewart. Okay, that took a half an hour, which is relatively faster than would have if we connected everyone on. And I appreciate that all of you have a story. All of you, Brahmande Brahmiti Konya Bhagavan Ji, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhaktilata Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Oh, you can hear me okay? I just realized I didn't plug in my microphone.
We can hear you fine.
Okay, so I don't need to plug in my microphone.
No, it's fine.
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains this to Rupa Goswami, that Brahmanda Brahmiti Konya Bhagavanji, that living entities are wandering, and you've all been wandering.
I think Gumaraj just cut out there.
Yes.
I got cut out.
Yes.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I'm going to open the door just to make sure my internet is strong enough. Brahmanda Brahmiti Konya Bhagavanji, that yes, you've been wondering, and been wandering in this material world for a long, long, long time. Not only just in this material world, been wandering in other universes. You can't remember it, but you are also sleeping in the body of Mahavishnu. Sounds exciting, but well, that's all it is. It just sounds exciting because you can't remember it. But that's where we were. And we went from universe to universe in 8,400,000 species of life. So 8,400,000 species in birds, in swimming in the ocean as, oh, anyway, you're recording, but anyway, I don't have to record, right?
No, we have.
My jar is there, so I can.
Yeah, she's recording.
I can have that. As fish, as birds, as mammals, as trees, as blades of grass. We've gone through all kinds of experiences. It's a good thing we can't remember. It would be extremely painful and very traumatic to remember all the difficulty that we've been through. So Brahmande Brahmite Kon, Bhagavan Jeev. But now, if someone becomes Bhagavan, not Bhagavan, but Bhagavan. If someone becomes fortunate, it's fortunate, bhagya. Just like if someone has some wealth, then they're called bhagya, bhagavan. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai. What does being fortunate mean? Fortunate means that someone comes in touch with Guru and Krishna. So, how do I come in contact with Guru? By Krishna's grace. And how do I come in contact with Krishna? By Guru's grace. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai. And well, what does it mean, just that particular meeting? What does it mean that we ended up meeting together? It means that Bhakti Lata Bij is that we are fortunate enough to receive the seed of devotional service. The seed, as Prabhupada likes to write, the seed of the creeper of devotional service. In other words, every seed grows into something. So in this case, it's not growing into a tree. It's not going into a blade of grass. It's growing into a creeper. And it's that Bhakti Lata Bij, the creeper of devotional service. How do we receive that creeper of devotional service? It is, virtually speaking, that is the relationship. The relationship is that I receive something through the medium of transcendental sound from spiritual master, which is the means by which to attain Krishna's lotus feet. Because that's where the creeper ends up. It ends up by Krishna's lotus feet. And to get there, one has to practice the process of devotional service. So when I get this seed, what does it really mean? It means that I accept it. I take those instructions in my heart and I practice it. So now you may have experience of seeding, either you're seeding a garden or you're throwing grass seeds out to seed your lawn and so on. If a seed falls on the pavement, nothing will happen. The seed needs to not only go into the ground, but preferably it should then be placed into the ground. It should be placed into the soil, which means that a disciple accepts those instructions. And then one thing is that you're in the soil, and the other one is, but you have to.
Az egyik dolog, hogy benne vagy a...
Nishanta, you're on. Is that not only, you should just be far away from your volume button here. Not only does the seed go into the soil, but it also needs to be watered. And that watering process is the process of sadhana bhakti. Shravana kirtan, kwariye sechan. To the extent that a devotee actually does good sadhana, chants Hare Krishna nicely, rises early, ideally attending a temple program, but that's a very restricted thing nowadays. But then at least has a regulated program at home. To that degree, that seed will grow. If you don't do it, it won't grow. So people ask about this relationship with guru and disciple. So one thing is the guru has to be potent, which means that he needs to be able to implant the seed. But once he does, and he gives ongoing instruction, then it becomes the duty or the responsibility of the disciple to continually embrace and accept those instructions so that one can then really advance. And as you do that, that seed sprouts and it starts to grow, and it grows and it grows and it grows, and it gives leaves, then it gives flowers, and then of course the last thing is that it gives fruit. And ultimately it takes shelter at Krishna's lotus feet, meaning we go back home, back to Godhead. So it's a joint relationship. The idea of accepting guru is it's not a ritual, it's not a formality, and I'm just trying to explain that it works to the extent that one applies those practices. Krishna consciousness is really sort of a real science. It requires time and energy to know. Varshana Gaur Arti's not on here, is she? No.
No, Guru Maharaj.
Okay. Anyway, that's a shame. She's a good example of someone who really systematically studies Srila Prabhupada's books, and that's her real main focus. She just finished the entire Bhagavatam. I don't mean reading, I mean studying, and done Bhakti Shastri, and now she's doing Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these books, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and Nectar of Devotion. These four books are, well, they're available all in Russian. These are the languages that we're communicating. They're available in Hungarian, and they're available in English. Unfortunately, they're not all available in Turkish. We're working on that. That's why I suggest that it's faster for Turkish devotees to learn English than wait for all these books to get translated. It takes time. So if you can, don't miss out. It's a wonderful gift from us, from Srila Prabhupada, of how to actually water, nurture, cultivate this seed of devotional service and ultimately go back to Godhead. It's easy. The problem is that easy things are quite difficult for people in Kali Yuga. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made it easy, but you know, for us chanting 16 rounds is sometimes not so easy. What to speak of if we're supposed to be chanting 64 rounds. And just even following the regulated principles, they are also sometimes a challenge. And that's really all about being civilized human beings, rather than, it's not even really a devotional qualification. So when we have, you know, for initiation, devotees are taking vows, chanting 16 rounds, following regulative principles. Chanting 16 rounds is not a regulative principles are not a spiritual qualification. They are a moral, religious sattvic qualification. Chanting 16 rounds is a spiritual qualification. So, but this other thing is just to have a good foundation. But even that is difficult and takes time. So that's where the difficulty or the problem lies in us, not particularly in the process. So Guru Krishna Prasadi by Bhakti Lata Beach. And having come to the stage where you want to accept someone as spiritual master, ultimately take the stage of initiation, it's part of a dynamic process in which we can offer what we have, which is transcendental knowledge and the holy name, and then it's for you to put that into action. It's almost like, all right, if you want to get those seeds, what do? Well, maybe you have to buy them. You go to a store, okay, here's the seeds, you get the seeds. Now it's up to you what you actually do with it. So it doesn't happen by miracle. And when devotees ask for blessings, especially devotees in Russia are very good for asking blessings, then this is what blessing is. Blessing is receiving transcendental knowledge. Just this is actually called my palm. In itself, it doesn't really constitute very much. Maybe at some time in the past, people were so potent that just by putting up their palm, some spiritual or transcendental energy emerged from that. But even if that happened, all that does is there to increase the desire to apply the things that Guru Krishna Prasadi by Guru, the things that Krishna said, the things that Krishna wants from us. And what are those things? That's what Srila Prabhupada has given in his books. Chaitanya Chandra, how long is this? Hour long or hour and a half long? What was your plan?
I think maybe one half an hour more would be all right for you, Guru Maharaj.
Yeah, I'm fine till 7:30.
Okay.
7:30. I mean, no, it's. Oh yes, sorry. I'm fine till 8:30 or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's 7:30 UK time. I'm just going to read a little from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is Sanātana Gosvāmī's meeting with Lord Chaitanya. And how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, how did Sanātana Gosvāmī approach Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And how did Chaitanya Mahaprabhu respond to him? Technically, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sanātana Gosvāmī's Shiksha Guru, not his Diksha Guru, but he instructed him. Just imagine, for 2 months, we just have a summary of that, obviously, but for 2 months, he kept instructing Sanātana Gosvāmī. Usually we have Krishna instructing Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada said it takes 45 minutes or an hour. We have Krishna instructing Uddhava, probably takes a similar amount of time. We usually have these instructions in the Bhagavatam that, span a relatively short period of time. Narada speaks to Maharaj Prachandi Parishad, or he speaks to Vyasadeva. These These are like just like now, just like our talk. They're just a limited period of time. But here we have something over 2 months. We don't know how many hours a day. We do know that others were also there, not by invitation. Lord Chaitanya went to the Dashashvamedha Ghat, which in Prague is a very, very famous ghat or bathing place. So naturally, many people were there already. And well, when they saw Lord Chaitanya, they saw Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's effulgence and beauty. Then they were drawn and they listened to what Lord Chaitanya is speaking to Sanātana Gosvāmī. 2 months, extraordinary. And even with Rupa Goswami, Lord Chaitanya was speaking for many days. So you can see how much these Goswamis were favored and how much instruction they received. There was no recorder at that time. Did the Sanātana Gosvāmī take notes? That wasn't so easy at that time either, because to write you had to first scratch things in the palm leaf, and then you had to smear it over with whatever they were using as a dye. He had to really absorb everything that the Lord was saying. And that's the essence of the relationship. That's the essence of the relationship between Guru and Krishna. So let me just turn here. So Sanātana Gosvāmī, he was, by the way, for those of you who don't know, he was originally born in a Brahmin family, a very high caste Brahmin family. He got involved with the local Nawab, who's actually the king of what is now West Bengal, Bangladesh. Very, very powerful, but he was a Muslim. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, Muslims are referred to by the name Yavana. That is the sort of category that you find them in Vedic culture. And the nature of Brahminical culture at that time was that if you took employment from a non-Vedic employer, then you lost your caste. You're no longer a Brahmin. You're an outcast. So you know that word, outcast. And this was Sanātana Gosvāmī, his brother Rupa Gosvāmī. There was another third brother, Anupa. They're all in that same situation. So Sanātana Gosvāmī was the prime minister of the king. In other words, he was the #1 minister, the person who was giving advice to the king. He was in a very important position. And when Lord Chaitanya came, the capital at that time was called Ramakeli, and that was a city in North Bengal, far up from where Mayapur is right now. And when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was on his way to Vrindavan, he stopped there. And that's where he met Rupa and Sanātana. And at that time, they decided that they were going to join and leave their employment. And that's described in detail in Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's sort of an exciting story. And Sanātana Gosvāmī was jailed. He got out of jail. And anyway, to make a long story short, he met up with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya then instructed him. And prior to that instruction, it's very interesting that Sanātana Gosvāmī, because he was working for Muslims all have beards. So Lord Chaitanya, first thing he told him was, you have to shave your beard, you have to shave your hair. And that was immediately, as soon as they met, that was the first instruction. And Lord Chaitanya wanted him to be dressed and look properly in Vaishnava attire. We have a certain way in which we appear, in which we are meant to be representing Krishna, and also the attire in which we actually worship. For instance, the attire in which we chant Hare Krishna. After Sanātana Gosvāmī shaved and got dressed and also sort of recuperated from a long trek through mountains and jungle to come to Lord Chaitanya, then they met here at this bathing place. And this is what happened. That was the introduction. So today we're reading from Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is in the Madhya Lila, 20th chapter, starting with verse 98. Tobe Sanātana Prabhupacharane Dhuriya Dainya Vinatikari Dante Trinolana. Putting a straw in his mouth and bowing down, Sanātana Gosvāmī clasped the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and humbly spoke as follows. This is Vaishnava culture. This idea, Dante Trinam, to place a blade of grass or straw in one's mouth. It's a sign of humility. And of course, to bow down. This is how one approaches. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Tadvidhi paripratena pariprashnena sevaya. He gives this system. He says, if you want to know how to accept the Guru, then paripratena pariprashnena sevaya. Then you approach them, you pariprashna, paripat, you fall, it's called dandavat, you offer your respects, and you inquire submissively, and you render service. It's the method of approach. It's not that different. When I was still young and going to school, I remember the first day of the school, we brought presents for the teacher. So it was meant to be, we're meant to show some respect. Now, I don't know how many of you do that, whether that's current. By the time I hit university, we certainly weren't doing that. But in grade school, I remember in the first day of every grade when we were going to school, the children brought some present to the teacher. Because I'm receiving something. Therefore, because I know I'm going to be receiving knowledge, and I know I'm going to be receiving the blessings to put that knowledge into practice, therefore I need to show my respect. I need to show my thanks. Technically, this is what dakshina is. This is what giving. What you know is dakshin, or devotees at initiation they give. It's something that you give after. But there's something that we can always give and that we need to give even before we start, and that is respect. So that was why, Chaitanya Chandra asked you all to dress nicely, to have tilak. It's respect. That in order for this knowledge to work, it won't work if the devotee doesn't have the right attitude. So it's very interesting, and that's the nature of transcendental knowledge or Krishna consciousness. Krishna says, "Dadami buddhi yogam tam jena mahamupayanti te." So I can speak something, and you get the information, but that for that information to mature within the heart, it requires Krishna to also cooperate. And if Krishna is not satisfied, remember, as I said, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, that for the prasad or for the mercy to work, both Guru and Krishna have to be satisfied. So if Krishna is not satisfied, then it remains words. You fall asleep. If Krishna is satisfied, then it becomes illuminating knowledge. One becomes illuminated by that. One becomes inspired. So but it requires this. It requires that respectful attitude. So that was what Sanātana Gosvāmī here is showing. One puts straw in his mouth, he bows down, and he takes the lotus feet. So these are three things. And then, Dainya Vinita Kwati. And then what he speaks with humility, he then also speaks. So these were the four things going on. One shows sign of humility, one bows down, touches the feet. That's a little difficult to do virtually. These are traditional cultural things. And then to speak in a very nice way. Okay, and then he speaks. So, but when he speaks, what does he say? Nitya jati, nitya shangi, patita adam. Ku vishaye kupi padi gonainu janama. Gonainu janama, excuse me. Sanātana Gosvāmī said this: I was born in a low family, and my associates are all low-class men. I myself am fallen, and I'm the lowest of men. Indeed, I have passed my whole life fallen in the well of sinful materialism. That wasn't exactly the reality. Sanātana Gosvāmī, as I said, was born in a very high-class family. And even though he worked with the Muslim king, he continued on with devotional practices. He was always studying Srimad Bhagavatam, and he was very and practicing Krishna consciousness. His whole residence had a Radhakund, a Shyamakund, temple. He had his temple with deities. So he was still a practicing devotee, but he did get entangled in different ways in the life and the conduct of, obviously, his employees. But that's a detail. The thing is, the attitude is that even though Sanātana Gosvāmī was wealthy, he was highborn, he was extremely intelligent. He wasn't the prime minister for no reason. He was very learned. Later on, Lord Chaitanya says that you're so learned you can even instruct me. So, but still, that's not how he comes. I know so much and I'm here. But rather, he comes, I have no qualification. And that's the basis of approach that a Vaishnava does, that I'm not qualified. Because in front of a teacher, part of the learning process is that just like water has to go from a higher to a lower. It doesn't go from a higher to even, it doesn't go up. It comes down. So unless we're down, then the mercy doesn't flow. So please give you your blessings, but blessings flow in this direction. They do not flow in this direction. And it needs to be externally manifest, but it also needs to be internally there. Then he continues. He says, what does he say? After these external show, and after saying that I'm really unqualified to be in this position, he says, apanara hita kichu najani gramya vyavahare pandita taye satyamani. He says, I don't know what's beneficial for me or what's detrimental. Nonetheless, in ordinary dealings, people consider me a learned scholar, and I'm also thinking of myself as such. So even though in the material field, someone may think that I'm very learned, I'm very intelligent, I've achieved so many other things, but that actually means nothing. Why? Because I don't know what's good for me, and I don't know what isn't good for me. I have no idea how to progress. He continues. Kripa kariya di more, kariya cha udhar, apana kripate kaha kartavya amar. Out of your causeless mercy, you have delivered me from the materialistic path. Now, by the same causeless mercy, please tell me what my duty is. So here's mercy. Please give me your blessings. Please give me your mercy. Sanātana Gosvāmī is saying, what is mercy? Tell me what my duty is. Tell me what I'm supposed to be doing in this human form of life. That is what real mercy is all about. Keami, kene amaya jare tapa try. Ihanahi jani kemana hitahoy. Who am I? Why do the threefold miseries always give me trouble? If I don't know this, how can I be benefited? So it starts off with the most basic and fundamental question is, who am I? I don't know who I am. Although people in the world around me maybe, and you're all here in some ways, you're all very expert in some things, and people may look up to you, and yet we don't know who we are. We still identify with the body by pressing this Zoom button, zoom.us, and I see so many pictures. But what are those things? They're just pictures of material bodies, but that's not who I'm really talking to. I'm talking to spiritual soul that's present in each and every one of those bodies. And yet we are so conditioned, so attached by all that wandering after so many millions of lifetimes. Attached to this conception that this is who I am, and it is extremely ingrained. It's very deeply ingrained, and to be free from that conception, it really requires purification. It's false ego. This is what false ego is called. It's a false conception of who I am. And to become free from that false ego really requires a lot of purification. If we just imagine how much dirt you accumulate over countless lifetimes, so you don't just like wipe that off. It's like not a miracle. It just disappears overnight. Now, the potency of Krishna consciousness is that it can actually, just in one go, purify us. The problem is that we are not so advanced that we can just chant Hare Krishna with that type of purity that the holy name will immediately free us from all of those past things and from that misconception. And so it's it's slow. So who am I? And he says, and why am I suffering? He says the threefold miseries. From my own body, from my mind, from other living entities, from the environment. So adibhautik, adidevik, adiatmik. These are the different types of suffering which are there. So adidevik means our environment. From adibhautik, other living entities, just like the virus is another living entity. You can't see it, but we're certainly suffering from it. And adiatmik, our body, our mind, it's causing us so much problem. I can't sit down, I have to stand. And when I stand, then my feet and legs hurt so much. Now, what other position do I have? I can't do a Zoom conference laying down. So why am I suffering? I'm suffering because I got myself entangled in this body. So he wants to know, now, how can I be benefited? And he continues, to what verse did I say we're going to? 108?
107, I think it was.
Sadhya, sadhana, tattva, puchite na jani, kripakori shabba tattva kahata apani. Actually, I do not even know how to inquire about the goal of life and the process for obtaining it. Being merciful upon me, explain all these truths. So Sanātana Gosvāmī says, I don't even know what to ask. It says, all I know is I don't know who I am, I'm suffering, and I don't know how to inquire about the goal of life. What am I supposed to say? Or even the process, sadhan and sadhya. Sadhya means the goal, and sadhan means the process for obtaining it. Now, I don't know anything about either, so I don't even know what to say. I don't even say, please instruct me about Bhakti Yoga, because I don't know anything about Bhakti Yoga. So I don't even know how to inquire. Sanātana Gosvāmī is greatly learned, as I had already said, but still, he's in this position in order to teach us. Lord Chaitanya said, Prabhu kahi, Krishna kripa tomate purna hoy, ta sabatattva jana tomara nahi tapatroy. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, Lord Krishna has bestowed his full mercy upon you, so that all these things are known to you. For you, the threefold miseries do not exist. So before Lord Chaitanya gives very elaborate instructions, he wants us to understand that actually Sanātana Gosvāmī is playing a role. Just like Arjuna. Arjuna was cast in a role to represent us, but he is Krishna's eternal associate, so there's no question of him being bewildered. Same thing, here Sanātana Gosvāmī said that Krishna has already given you his mercy, and you know all of these things, which means that Krishna Kripa, that means that Sanātana Gosvāmī was already transcendentally situated. He just wasn't a practitioner. He was already a perfected devotee. He is Krishna's, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's eternal associate. So there's no question about him being in delusion. But he's setting that example, and that example is there for us. Krishna Shaktidari Tumi, Jana Tattva Bhav, Jani Dharya, Lagi Puche, Shadura Swabhav. Since you possess Lord Krishna's potency, you certainly know these things. However, it is the nature of a sadhu to inquire. Although he knows these things, the sadhu inquires for the sake of strictness. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Bhagavatam. Otherwise, we wouldn't have Bhagavad Gita. Or Chaitanya Charitamrita, because all of these personalities, they are actually in knowledge. they are transcendentalists because we get the perfect example from them of how to act, of how to respond. Prahlad Maharaj is a transcendentalist, so, but he thinks of himself as just a practicing devotee. So he shows us how to behave when you're in situations of difficulty. And we can't find ourselves in more difficulty than little Prahlad did at the age of 5. So these perfect devotees show us what is the perfect reaction. Otherwise, if Sanātana Gosvāmī was really what he introduced himself as, then we wouldn't actually get a perfect example. We would really be getting a struggling example of what happens with his life thereafter in those years that he applies Lord Chaitanya's instructions, goes to Vrindavan and fulfills Lord Chaitanya's mission of establishing Krishna consciousness. So, but still, they inquire. Even if someone knows, it's still his duty to inquire. So, Paripratena, Pariprashnena, Pariprashna. It's your duty to inquire. You may know, and this is something that devotees have to themselves, know the signs of inquiry. Because this is what our books are all about, and that is how devotees inquire, and they get answers based on their inquiry. You know, myself and my god brothers, god sisters, we were, Srila Prabhupada was with us at most 12 years. In other words, when Prabhupada began preaching, devotees joined. It was actually just 11 years that the oldest devotees were with Prabhupada. But many devotees only had Prabhupada's association for 2-3 years. And in the meantime, Prabhupada was traveling the world. So, and they were very immature and young devotees. We didn't even have books. You know, when I joined, we just had the beginning of the 3rd canto. There was no Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Nectar of Devotion was there, Srimad Bhagavatam up until the beginning of the 3rd canto, and Bhagavad Gita. But actually, the Bhagavad Gita that we had when we first started was a abridged version. It wasn't the Bhagavad Gita that we have now. So there were hardly any recordings or lectures. There was a new thing, cassettes, cassette recordings, and making those available. So we had very limited knowledge. We couldn't ask all the questions that we'd really like to ask Prabhupada now. But Srila Prabhupada isn't here. So it's very important that devotees, and when I talk about questions, I mean questions about how to advance in spiritual life. Often devotees ask questions about how to get to spiritual life. Well, that's what we have counselors for. We have counselors to help sort of clear the way so devotees can finally come to spiritual life. My marital problems, my other issues in terms of work and this and that, these are not really the things that a disciple approaches spiritual master about. Generally, we work these things out, but in Kali Yuga, we really need help. So we get help of these from senior devotees, from counselors, and so on. And the science of asking, the better questions you ask, the better answers you will get. If you ask just pat questions, you may get pat answers, you may get a little deeper. But if you really study Srila Prabhupada's books and inquire based on the teachings that you find in Bhagavatam and so on, then you get much richer answers. It's relationship. Jejitamam prapadyante. Then Lord Chaitanya is quoting a very well-known verse, and this is, well, one of the things that devotees should do is memorize verses. This time last night I was reading, I sent one verse to a few disciples, well, the devotees who are sort of in my bubble over here, in my quarantine bubble. And I said, you have to know these by tomorrow morning when I see you. So, and they did. They showed up. First thing I asked them, okay, I want to hear the verse. And they knew the verse. So, yes, we should memorize verses. The Vedic system is actually memorization. That's even before there was writing. The system of teaching was that the guru would repeat things to a disciple and tell him, all right, the lesson for today is Atato Brahma Jignasa. Learn it, meditate on it, I'll see you tomorrow. And in this way, one would learn verses. Dharma kshetre kurukshetre samaveta yutsavaha mamaka pandavaschaiva kimmakurvata sanjaya. When you've memorized it, come back. Until then, I'm busy. So this memorization, it's not something that's emphasized so much. Srila Prabhupada emphasized it. And it's a very good exercise for the intelligence. It's a very good way of learning. Achirad iva sarvarta siddhyat esham abhipshita tad dharmasya vabodhaya yesham nirbandini mati. So when I was writing this current book, this nirbandha, nirbandini, Nirbandini Mati, this unflinching, undeviated intelligence, I was really fascinated by that expression, and it's repeatedly found within Shastra. The translation here is those who are eager to awaken their spiritual consciousness and who have unflinching, undeviated intelligence certainly attain the desired goal of life very soon. So it's very interesting that here the ability to awaken spiritual consciousness is connected to intelligence. Usually we hear about faith and other things, and of course those are also there. But here, unflinching, undeviated intelligence, in other words, one really focuses. If you're eager to awaken your spiritual consciousness very soon and to attain the desired goal of life very soon, then unflinching, undeviated intelligence. You can start by memorizing verses. You want to know what verses? Ask your counselor. There are, for instance, 30 main verses in the Bhagavad Gita. If you want to be a little more assertive or more involved, you can memorize the whole Bhagavad Gita. It's only 700 verses. It doesn't take that long. And you can do it in a year or two, and it's great. It's great. As Krishna says, one who studies these teachings worships me by his intelligence. Yogya patra hao tumi bhakti pravartaite krama shabba tattva shuna kahiti tomate. You are fit to propagate the cult of devotional service. Therefore, gradually hear all the truths about it from me. I shall tell you about them. So we just conclude with this. Lord Chaitanya is connecting. You're qualified to tell others what I'm going to tell you. Therefore, now hear from me. So Lord Chaitanya is also saying that, yes, part of this Guru Krishna Prasadade Praya Bhakti Lata Bij is that you give Krishna consciousness to others. How? That depends. If all you can do now is do it virtually, do it virtually. What you know, give to others. We're here because someone gave to us. Lord Chaitanya says, he connects the learning process with the teaching process, getting with giving. In other words, if we don't get into this cycle of giving Krishna consciousness to others, the knowledge that we receive will mature very, very slowly. If we want it to mature fast, we have to get into the habit of giving to others. And then it works. So that's why we're in the preaching and the Krishna consciousness movement. Prabhupada expected everyone, just whatever situation they're in, somehow or another, take responsibility for giving Krishna consciousness to others. And that I'm going to leave you with that last thought. I think I've sort of spoken quite a bit. I'm just going to answer in a few words here. Chaitanya Chandra sent some question, and that came from Sumyendu. One was, he said that he was just at a seminar and he realized that his worship, which I assume for home worship, is far away from the standards. Yes, there is distinction between home worship and temple worship. The home worship is a much simpler process than the temple worship. Otherwise you wouldn't be able to have a job. Pujaris don't, full-time pujaris don't do jobs at the same time in the temple. So it's part-time, it's a different standard. And home standards are probably clearly available, especially if you're in the UK, then you can find home standard from your counselor. It's not a difficult thing, but basically one should be worshipping Gaurnitai, and one shouldn't be worshipping other deities. I don't know what deities we're talking about, but especially with Gaurnitai, the important thing is to chant Hare Krishna. Don't get entangled in all kinds of rituals, artiques, and so on. The most important thing with devotees is to chant and read, not doing puja and so on. Keep puja to a very, very basic minimum. The most important thing for progressing in spiritual life is not deity worship, it's chanting Hare Krishna. And to that we should have quality time. And similarly, in order to be able to chant properly, then you have to be able to hear. And there's another question from Marcela in Ecuador, South America. Is she online from Ecuador?
Yes, she is.
Oh. Where? I'm looking.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for reading my question.
Hare Krishna. Okay, yes. Marcela, out in Ecuador, of all places. Anyway, there's some advantages to this internet business. So how to cultivate, she says, a genuine and loving relationship with service, with spiritual master. According to the facilities that we have, I would say come and visit. But anyway, there's no way of getting here unless you're going to cross the Atlantic in a boat or something like that. I suggest you don't do that. Besides, we're very far away from the Atlantic, at least for the time being. And so we just have to do it this way. These meetings are one thing. I'm really sort of limited as to how much I can interact further with devotees, and that in one sense is a sort of a burden for me, and I'm wondering how long I can actually, how long I should be doing this, is accepting new disciples when I'm so limited. I'm not answering letters. I'm reading letters, but I'm not answering generally. And right now, I don't have any direct interaction with practically any devotees, even the devotees in New Brajadam, what to speak of devotees in Hungary, who I usually see, and then other devotees who I visit are devotees in the UK, but now that's been restricted to London. So, so we really need to make the best of the inner transcendental relationship. This was the way our relationships were with Srila Prabhupada. Didn't obstruct us from really being dedicated, devoted, and really spreading Krishna consciousness around the world. So, Guru Krishna Prasade Pai, we need to take advantage of the fact that Krishna's in everybody's heart, and Krishna becomes like the Vine media, just like now we're talking once a month, I don't know, twice a month at most, on this medium with devotees. But we can always be talking heart to heart if we're chanting in the right way. So with the right type of devotional activity, then that devotional connection is there. Is that okay, Marcella? Okay.
Yes, good Maharaj. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering my question. I'm so happy.
Hare Krishna. She's so happy she's crying. Anyway, that's good happy. So, yes, thank you all. This is our current situation. We're separated by only by distance and by time, but spiritually we're connected. And actually, I was just talking a while ago with Nitai Bhavana up in Debrecen, who has a lovely restaurant center over there. And I phoned him up, who I hadn't talked to him in like 5 months or something like that. And I was apologizing. He said, no, actually, we've been feeling your presence even more than before. So it's there. Srila Prabhupada said, if you're chanting, I'm chanting, then we're connected. But it requires a certain type of chanting. So if we do that kind of quality chanting, then Zoom is always on. It's going on 24 hours a day. So it requires a type of devotion, sat sishya. It requires that type of devotion and really dedication to the process that linking process keeps us always in touch. And that's possible, not because I'm doing anything, but because Krishna makes it possible. Guru Krishna Prasade Pai. Okay, so nice talking to everyone, and Nilüfer and Eva and David, Levanta and Tibor, Shiromani and Mariana and Jot and Karoy and Joanne and Ferry and Gurkam and Dimitri and Vladim and Juliana. You don't want me to go through everybody's name. and Manjari, and Tsigdan, and Barshana, and Hainalka, and Ekaterina, Nikita, and Judy, and Bhakta Sam, and Leela, and Gerger, and Razida, and Durga. And then we've got Nurlan, Ananda Chaitanya, Budkina, Marina, and Ildiko. Some of the names come first, some of the first names come last. It's sort of hard. And there's Christina and Monideep and Sumina, and there's Ipek counting away, and Peter and Monica and Miriam and Nishanta Lila and Marian and Jolt. It's a question of who's. It's Jolt's Marian or Marian's Jolt. And then there's Ben and Marcella and Bhakti Jai and Jolt, Nishinga Krishna and Krishna Mala, and Vladimir and Olga, and the kids aren't there, and I guess they must be asleep or they're running around somewhere. And there's Chaba and Anahita's phone and the whole family sitting over there. Happy birthday again, Hare Krishna, and Tarangini Gaur Krishna Vanda, who's over here, and Ishtvan, Christina, and I'm going to some doubles over here now. Yes, and then there's Tunde and Maxim and Balint, Anushuya and Arun, Hare Krishna, Rajini, Kathleen, Roman, Nanda Priya, Nandulal, Kata, Erne, Didam and Vilgin, and Larissa, and Nahir, Vilgin, well, he's another one, Tom, Henriette, and that's it. Hare Krishna, everybody. Chaitanya Chandra, anything to say? I have to phone Ricardo.
No, thank you very, very much, Guru Maharaj, for your time and sharing so much with us. We really appreciate it.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everybody. It was like, instead of chanting Hare Krishna, I'm chanting all the devotees' names.
Wonderful.
Probably equivalent to 2 rounds. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, everybody, for coming on time. We didn't have any audio disturbances and no video disturbances, so that was very good. That was very nice. Guru Maharaj reading all the names at the end there. That was really nice. He didn't say my name.
He said it multiple times, Chaitanya.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming on time, and thank you for the translators, Nishringa Krishna Prabhu, Nishantalila Mataji, and Tarangini Mataji. Thanks also for the devotees who've been assisting in the background, Manjari and Shiromani Matajis, and also the devotees who've been helping gathering information, Varshana Mataji and Gaura Krishna Prabhu and all the preachers. It's inspiring to see all of you here. Thank you once again. We'll keep in touch, and
Thank you, Chaitanya Chandra.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
we'll send a video link to everybody.
Thank you.
Prabhupada ki,
Jai.
Sham Sundar ki,
Jai.
Maharaj ki,
Jai.
O Premanande.
Hari Hari Bo.